Hello, Miami. This is 305 Sports Now, your home podcast and channel for all things Miami sports related. I am Will. And first things foremost, I'd like to welcome back to the 305 Sports Now show, Mr. Mike Brodsky. Mike is a very, very, very busy guy, okay? In his first of all, he's an author of two books, Incremental Improvements and Fourth Down and Damn, right? The Leon Searcy, there he goes. Right,
Got
the
it right
Leon
there.
Searcy story, autobiography. All right, he's also involved in World Sports Alumni. You can catch the embroidery on his shirt as well. He's alumni of Duke University, but we won't hold that against him here on this channel. And he's I guess I could call him a sports reporter, all right, for Florida National News as he covered the Super Bowl on Radio Row. Mike, how's it going?
Doing well, doing well. Yes, a lot has happened since the last time I was on the show, but yes, certainly Radio Row was quite an experience this year in Phoenix. That's for sure.
Yeah, I envied you. I mean, I saw I saw everything on social media. I'm like, man, this guy's so lucky, man. You know, don't Tony Dungy, the Barber
Yeah,
Bros. I mean,
yeah.
can you tell the audience? I'm not giving everything away. Can you tell the audience whom you spoke with and interviewed?
Sure, sure. I mean, it was really just an amazing experience for me. I mean, I had the opportunity, as you mentioned, to interview Tony Dungy, Tiki, and Rondé Barber. It was actually the day after Rondé Barber had just been announced as getting inducted into the Hall of Fame this summer, and had a chance to chat on the red carpet with Brian Urlacher. Or Dave Robinson, a couple of Hall of Famers there. Ron Jaworski at the Ditka and Jaws cigar party that was going on. Had a chance to, I mean, really the highlight. I mean, there were so many highlights. I mean, one of the things that was kind of interesting for me was talking with people like Rashad Jennings or, oh gosh, Louise Sharp was great. You know. Also Miles Burris. Oh man, I mean, there were just so many amazing interviews throughout that whole week. Of course, the culmination may have been at the when Patrick Mahomes was given the MVP award the day after the Super Bowl. And I had the opportunity to attend that press conference. I had the opportunity to ask a question of Patrick Mahomes, and it was just viewed by tons and tons of people on the NFL Network, and certainly my most successful post I think ever on social media was that sort of that highlight of my question of Patrick Mahomes. So it was just an amazing experience all around. For those who might be jealous, for what it's worth, I didn't actually get to go to the game. I didn't get to go to the Super Bowl. I was
Oh, you
really just
didn't?
on Radio Row
Oh, wow.
and watched the game at Hants Park along with all the other people. There must have been like 15,000 people at Hants Park watching on the big screen TVs. But to be on Radio Row and to have opportunities to go to some of the parties, to go to Taste of the NFL, I mean, it was just these incredible opportunities to speak with people and football players and other celebrities that were there. I mean, unbelievable opportunity.
Of all the Hall of Famers you met, whom did you feel you had the most you had the best time speaking with?
Oh, of the Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Let's see, because this go around, I had a chance to interview four Hall of Famers. I guess I may have talked with a couple of others, but in terms of the interviews, I mean, I really enjoyed the Tony Dungy interview. I thought that was great. Um, the Tiki and Rondé Barber interview, that was great. Urlacher and Robinson, that was more of just like a quick red carpet kind of an interview there with those guys. Um, oh gosh, I mean, I mean, the whole thing was just it's almost surreal when you look back at it. I mean, it was just an amazing experience. I mean, just incredible conversations. I enjoyed chatting with Ryan Leaf. I mean, that was a lot of fun. I mean, here's a guy who kind of gets knocked for being one of the biggest draft busts ever, but he's really try to turn around his whole life really and try to become of value to other people. And so it's interesting to kind of see what he's done, what he's really done to try to resurrect his name, I guess you could say. And so that was kind of fun to chat with him. I'm trying to think of who else kind of jumped out at me as being interesting. One of the guys that was kind of fun for me to interview was actually Beasley Reese, who may not be a name that a lot of people might not know the name, but I actually grew up in Connecticut and would watch the Hartford NBC affiliate, and Beasley Reese was the sports director. So, like as a teenager, kind of watching sports, Beasley Reese was the guy that was the sports broadcaster, sports director. And so to actually meet him and talk with him about sports and about his career in the NFL and his time as a sports broadcaster, that was neat for me. That was pretty surreal to see a guy that I would watch on TV and then to actually talk with him about sports and sports broadcasting and sports journalism. That was cool. So just a lot of unbelievable surreal moments the whole week. I mean, it was just an amazing experience, and I can't wait to get out to Vegas for next year to do this all again. So we'll see what happens next year.
I'll be frank with you. You look like you had a great time. Are you continue doing more stuff for the network or?
Well, I mean, I'll say this: my day job, as you know, is working as a financial advisor, and
Yes.
so that's what pays the bills. But I will say that being able to do some sports journalism a little bit on the side is just it's a lot of fun. Um, and so I've really enjoyed doing it, and I try to do it occasionally when I can. It's not the sort of thing where I can just do this full time and go and give up my day job to become a sports journalist. It's not like ESPN is knocking at my door giving me tons of money to do this for a living, but it is kind of fun to do it once in a while. So I'll do it occasionally when there's something of interest that I think I might like to try or to do. And certainly week of Super Bowl, I mean, that's been a great opportunity. So I'm planning to continue to try to do that at a very minimum. But I also did manage to cover Bay Hill, Arnold Palmer Invitational this year, the golf tournament. That was fun. And we'll see what else we'll see what else comes along in the coming months.
I mean, you're doing a great job, and I have to say, you're a busy guy, and the fact you can compartmentalize. I'm probably butchering the word right now. Compartmentalize,
Yeah.
all that you're doing, is pretty admirable. I mean, like I said, you do finance, you're involved in World Sports Alumni. You do your financial advisor. You really are. You helped me out one day. I remember when I needed some guidance. And then you're doing this with FFN. I mean, I think it's fantastic. And again, like I said, it's you're great at what you do, and I hope, I know it's part time, but I hope ESPN does give you a call. I hope they do give you a call and give you a bit of a shot. The reporting's been
We'll
a little
see. We'll see.
little
I'll let you know
shoddy
if the call
lately.
comes in.
Yeah, it's been a little shoddy lately with the reporting.
That's right. That's right. But yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
mean the media thing, look, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I'd worked as a television news producer way back before I was a financial advisor, and sort of got back into this whole sports reporting thing. I think shared the story about kind of covering the Pro Bowl practices back in 2019 and breaking a story that got picked up by ESPN, TMZ, and Bleacher Report. And that's kind of what got me back into this whole thing and really opened the door for me to be able to do the Super Bowl. I mean, this was actually the fourth Super Bowl week that I've been able to cover and to hit Radio Row. So it's been a great opportunity and great to be able to go back and do that. Just even if it's just for fun, and it's just been an amazing experience, an amazing opportunity.
Before we get into the NIL, you mentioned that, I have to ask a quick question. How did they find you? Did they find you because of the old stuff that you did back in the day, and they called you up, hey Mike, we want you to cover this event as a freelancer, or you contacted them? How did that work?
It was actually a buddy of mine that I'd met really through World Sports Alumni,
Okay.
and I got to give a shout out to Mike Dixon, who at the time was with Vegas Sports Daily, was the organization that he had a website, Vegas Sports Daily, and so he was able to get me the media pass, and it was really the mission that I was sent on was just to get an interview with Jared Cook. Jared Cook was the only Raiders player. At the time, it was still the Oakland Raiders. They had not yet moved to Vegas, but they were going to be moving to Vegas. And so getting that interview with Jared Cook, it just happened to be that I was able to kind of find a story that I really overheard Jared Cook telling a story to the Raiders team media that I thought was amazing. If I could get him to tell me this on camera, it would be incredible. And sure enough, he did. And it was basically the story about during the government shutdown, how he had flown into Orlando. And I asked him about it, and he said, "Oh yeah, these TSA agents, they broke into my luggage, they stole my shoes, they stole my clothes, and but at the time the government was going through the shutdown, and so he said, when you don't pay these guys, it's like if you don't feed a dog, they'll go to licking on your bones. And it was just an amazing soundbite. And so as a result, the story got picked up, and you had TSA commenting on it, saying, "Oh, we take these allegations very seriously." And meanwhile, he never got his stuff back. Never compensated him for all of that. So it was just an interesting story. But that of course opened the door for other opportunities with Clear Channel Communications and Florida National News, and so it's worked out well. And also for Mike Dixon and Vegas Sports Daily. I mean, I think at the time it got him more hits than he'd ever had up to that point. And he actually has done some other stuff where it's now Vegas Sports Today, and there was another deal with another sports organization. So that site certainly is also doing very well too.
Excellent. Okay, so one of the reasons why we're having you on is because NIL is a big thing. It's a big, that acronym is everywhere in sports, whether it's college basketball, whether it's whether it's college football, whether it's even state government and so on. That's an acronym that's been thrown around all over the place. Yeah. A lot of people don't necessarily understand exactly what NIL is. People who are fans have an idea, but not everyone can clearly put together exactly what its purpose and what it's meant to do for college athletes. Can you explain to the audience exactly what an NIL is and how it functions?
Yeah, I mean, NIL, of course, is short for name, image, and likeness. And if you think back before all of these NIL rules came into play, and it was really, you have to remember, this is really still brand new. I mean, the NIL rules really didn't take effect until about December of 2021, when all of a sudden players who were college athletes were allowed to make money on their name, image, or likeness, right? Before that, if you think about, athletes that played with any college, they were limited to, okay, you can get a scholarship, and then eventually, okay, you can also have a stipend, but that's it, nothing more. And, so a lot of these players, really couldn't make money for playing college football. And the big risk was, if you're not getting paid to play college football or basketball, what if you get injured? What if you get injured and then you're unable to go on to the pros? What do you do, right? And so there was some risk there. And that's why a lot of these guys, you'd see them, as soon as they were eligible to go to the NFL or to go to the NBA or to go into professional sports, many of them were leaving college because they wanted to get paid, right? So, and it was interesting. I remember a few years back, I was at an event for one of the local colleges was having a gathering with their basketball players and that sort of thing. And I was talking to a couple of the guys, and I offered to send them a copy of my first book, Incremental Improvements, Change Your Life One Small Step at a Time. And the funny thing was, they're looking at each other and they're saying, well, thank you, but we can't even accept the book because that might be seen as an NCAA violation if we take a book for free. I mean, it's a book that sells for $9.99 on Amazon, and these guys were worried about getting written up or having the team have some kind of problems because they took a book from someone who was just chatting with them. So, a lot of these players were under a lot of scrutiny. And, certainly if you read Leon Searcy's autobiography, Fourth Down and Damn, the other book, there's some stories about some of the Miami guys, certainly they were taken care of by, let's say, Luther Campbell when they'd go to his nightclub or whatever. And
Allegedly.
I don't, what's that?
Allegedly.
Allegedly, exactly. None of this is, no one will ever confirm any of this really, but my assumption is that maybe not all of these guys were actually paying for all of the drinks or all of the food that they might have consumed at some of these places, right? But again, they had to be very, very careful about this. And it's a lot of it was, I think for any college athlete, I think a lot of times there were people that wanted to help them, that wanted to try to give them free stuff or free fringe benefits for being a player with certain teams. But you had to be very careful, because if the NCAA found out about any of that, the school could get in a lot of trouble. And there've been a lot of teams where championships have been vacated and, losses were kind of turned over after the fact, or, retroactively, games were lost, championships were taken away, whatever, because of violations of those rules. Now, because of name, image, and likeness, what you have is an opportunity for these players to go out and sell themselves. So you see a lot of players that all of a sudden are getting deals from local restaurants, local auto dealers. There are companies that are coming in and saying, "Hey, come to our company, come to our business, take some photos with fans, sign some autographs. We will pay you X amount of dollars to do that." And so a lot of players all of a sudden are finally getting paid something for being a college athlete. Now, there are a lot of rules, and the whole thing about NIL too is that the rules vary from state to state. Um, there are still a lot of limitations on what they can do, how much, what they can do basically. Like the school can't pay these players directly. They can still give them the scholarships and maybe the stipend, but then the NIL deals a lot of times are just happening between, the athlete can have an agent that goes around and looks for these NIL deals. The athlete, in some cases, there are either alumni groups or even not-for-profits that are being created that will go out and try to find money, either from alumni or companies that are connected, that are fans of the school even, and then try to get this money to the players. So what's interesting is at most big schools that have good football programs or good basketball programs, etc., what's happening is even if you're on the bench, you might be getting $25,000 to $50,000 or more. And then, of course, if you're a star player, I mean, some of the highest paid players through NIL deals are getting upwards of $1 to $2 or $3 million. I think I had read that Bryce Young is getting something like $3.6 million, somewhere in that ballpark. A lot of the numbers are kind of also very hard to track because a lot of times you're not hearing about all of the deals necessarily. You could try to Google stuff and maybe you can get a little bit of information, but it's very hard to get realistic, accurate figures on how much these players are getting. But it's still, a lot of people compare it to the Wild West because this is all very new and everyone's still kind of testing the boundaries and testing the limits on what they can do. And what's also interesting is even beyond the college level, at the high school level, some states have even allowed the high school athletes now to go out and get on NIL deals. So you have players like LeBron James's son, Bronny Jr., whatever, is getting a ton of money, and he's still a high school student, right? Now, here in Florida, where we are, you're not allowed to make money at the high school level. So that's not happening. But in some states, some of the high school athletes are now getting paid to play at the high school level, and they haven't even hit college yet. So it's a very interesting time for college sports just in general. And certainly, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more to come in terms of maybe changes to some of the rules, limitations. States that don't have all the same rules that other states have might start to change some of their legislation to allow for more freedom. Who knows how this is all going to play out?
Yeah, so one of the things I want to ask you, our governor just signed a bill that schools are allowed to negotiate NIL deals now with athletes and so on. That was something that was against NCAA violations, from what I understand. That's what the whole Jaden Rashada thing picked up originally. We'll get into Jaden in a minute, but what do you think about schools being able now, at least in the state of Florida, being able to negotiate NIL deals with potential athletes coming into the university?
Yeah, it is interesting because obviously we know about sort of this high-profile case where a student athlete kind of backed away from one of the
Yeah.
local schools because of, I think he was expecting to get 13 or 14 million dollars allegedly, and because of the rules, the NIL collective that had kind of put the deal together had to say, "Oh, we're really sorry, but the rules won't allow us to give you that money." And once he heard that, he was out. So I think because now some of the schools can put these collectives together, it gives them a lot more flexibility to become more competitive with programs like Alabama or programs like whoever it is, right? It doesn't really matter. Texas, just the fact that they can try to put these collective deals together, because it is a lot easier. Obviously, the larger the base, right? Like once you can kind of put together a collective and try to get money on behalf of maybe an entire team, so that you can say to someone that wants to come and play for a team, like, hey, listen, even if you're not starting, you're still going to get at a minimum, you could be the backup kicker and you're still going to get this amount of money, right? And then if you're a superstar, you're the starting quarterback or whatever, you're going to get this amount of money. Maybe it's a little bit larger. And if you're able to get your own deals on your own, that's fantastic. But you don't even have to sweat it. You're going to come in knowing that you're going to get this amount of money because our team has already worked out these deals for our team collectively. And yes, we're going to make a couple of appearances here and there at certain business locations. Yes, we're going to take some photos. Yes, we're going to sign autographs. And the players, maybe they're not huge fans of it, but they know they're getting paid pretty handsomely to do it. It used to be several years ago, they still had to make some of those appearances and they were getting paid nothing for it. I mean, other than the fact they were getting the tuition and maybe a stipend, that was it. So at least now they can get paid to make those kinds of appearances, to promote other businesses and basically, again, make a profit off of their name, image, and likeness.
One of the biggest concerns that I have as a fan, I actually do support NIL. And the reason why I do support it, because I think the NCAA created its own monster, and the way they treated these student athletes for so many years. So I'm all for kids, getting paid. I mean, it was even difficult to get jobs outside of the university for some of these students. It was ridiculous. Right. But my biggest concern is that I don't think a guy like Jaden Rashada, I'll say his name, Jaden Rashada should make $13 million when I know he was the top recruit in the country as far as quarterback. Well, actually, probably the second best. Archie Manning was the first one. Second best recruited quarterback in the country. Come on, he's throwing touchdown passes against sometimes in some cases 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
To make $13 million. Do you think that's something that college football needs to rein in, like create a tier system, something that Leon seriously did mention at one of his appearances? Because sooner or later, within 10 years, you're gonna have a $20 million freshman. The way things are going. So
yeah.
So what do you think about that?
It's interesting. I know Leon obviously had his thoughts, having played during an era where there was no NIL, but it's going to be interesting to see, because for a long time the NCAA thought, allowing teams or allowing colleges to pay the players directly because they didn't want that kind of a situation happening. But now it's getting to the point where you're going to have the same issue that you have in professional sports, where salaries are going to keep escalating because everyone's going to keep trying to outdo each other and keep bidding up the prices to bring these star athletes into their college. But at the same time, I mean, so you could say like, oh, there should be limits or there should be tiers, and you can't just let it get out of control. But the reality is, if you think about just from an economic standpoint, you probably should allow the economy to kind of work its magic. And if someone is able to earn $15-20 million to go play at a school, why not? Why not let them make that money? I mean, and especially in the world of maybe college football, even more so than let's say basketball. It's a dangerous game. I mean, a lot of these kids, if they get a concussion or two, they get a couple of injuries to parts of their body. As it is in the NFL, typical NFL player only lasts less than 4 years before their career is done on average. So, when you kind of, if they're able to make a little bit of money in college, is there anything really wrong with that? I mean, why not? I mean, they're really putting their bodies on the line, risking injury, risking concussions and long-term CTE and that kind of thing as a result of playing the game. They should be allowed to get paid, and if someone is willing to pay, or if businesses and companies in general and these schools through the collectives are able to, or are somehow able to pay these guys 10 or 15 or $20 million, if the market bears that, why not let them make the money?
Yeah, playing devil's advocate with you a little bit. Don't you think that mostly the majority of schools that could pay an athlete like that will be like the Alabamas, the Miamis, the Florida States, the Ohio States, the Michigans, because they're Power 5 schools, and they're just think of the SEC alone. If you're an SEC school, you make about $117 million a year alone on television deals, so they could afford, put these collectives together and pay these athletes. But the schools like but the smaller schools like the FIUs, the FAUs, will their programs cease to basically exist because they can't, they won't be able to keep up with the money race that these Power Five schools can offer?
It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it all kind of plays out, because I think to some extent, if anything, the NIL deals and the fact that, and let's also throw the transfer portal into the mix here too, to some extent, it almost levels the playing field where even the smaller schools, if they make concerted efforts over a period of time, can all of a sudden start to work their way back up and become more competitive with some of the bigger, better schools. I mean, a great example would be like University of Colorado, bringing Deion Sanders into the picture. The numbers are amazing in terms of the difference that just he hasn't coached a game yet for the Buffaloes in Colorado, and he's already raised the profile of that program dramatically just by signing on as their coach, right? And all of a sudden, he's attracting players through the transfer portal. He's getting recruits to sign up with Colorado. And, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out over the next couple of years. But you may see Colorado may just take a quantum leap because Colorado made the commitment to say, we're going to pay Deion Sanders to come here to take our program to the next level. And there's really no reason why other programs can't do something similar. If they're creative, they can put a few bucks together, try to bring the program together by attracting the right coach, attracting a couple of high-profile prospects, and then all of a sudden, why can't they compete and eventually work their way into a better conference? Look, in the next year or two, we're seeing a lot of changes of teams moving from one conference to another, right? There's a lot of that happening right now. And we're probably going to continue to see that happening. And of course, with each move from one conference to the next, the main reason they're doing it is because of the money. They're moving to a conference where the team is going to get paid more money to make the move. And now they have more money to throw around to kind of support the program, build the program. So it's like any other business. I mean, it's competitive and it's always changing. And coming back to the transfer portal, it's interesting because all of a sudden, the game is very different. If you were, a backup at a top school, in the past, you were kind of stuck there. I mean, yes, you could transfer, but in many cases, you might have to even wait a year before you could actually start playing again. Now, if the player's not getting as much time on the field or on the court as he or she would like, they can enter the transfer portal and hopefully find another school that's willing to start them. And maybe even they can get more money from the NIL deals because now they're getting more playing time, they're getting more recognition, more, people are recognizing them more, and that translates to more dollars. And the other interesting thing too, I was chatting with a high school coach not too long ago who was telling me about the impact in high school sports on the recruiting side. It's a lot tougher to get some of these recruits. Like if you're a top-notch recruit, of course, you're going to attract all of the top colleges are going to come after you. But if you're kind of like you're a good player, but maybe not 4 or 5 star, you're kind of like, decent, but you might not be getting as much attention now because you're competing against guys that are in the transfer portal where they're a little bit more of a known quantity because they've actually played some college games already. And colleges can look and see, oh, this guy's in the transfer portal, we'll take him. We don't have to go and find a 3-star athlete at the high school. So it's a very different world now. And of course, with the COVID adding a couple of extra years of eligibility into the mix, that'll eventually work itself out. But, for now, there's just a lot more talent that's out there available to play in the NCAA. Students can transfer from one school to another with almost no repercussions. It's a very different game today than it used to be.
Yeah, the transfer portal has been a double-edged sword. On one end, if you're playing for, like, for example, the UM had KJ Osborne. He came from Buffalo, University of Buffalo, and became a very solid wide receiver for the Miami Hurricanes. He got himself drafted to the Minnesota Vikings. But on the other end, you'll never see the 2001 Canes again because I just don't see Sean Taylor sitting on the bench, for 2 years waiting for Ed Reed to graduate. So that's a double-edged sword. You may not get those kind of dynasty teams again because the ease it is to transfer. Miami lost about, I think, 15 or 16 transfers to the portal this year because of,
Yep.
this past season, and what happened with the coach and so on. So I mean, like I
Yeah.
said, it's double-edged sword.
So,
I understand why
yeah.
they transfer and so on, but I mean, it could be a double-edged sword for a lot of kids. I mean, a lot of kids could get stuck in the portal too because they think they can transfer and
Yeah.
then they'll get picked up by a school. That's something that DeMarcus Van Dyke mentioned here. You're not guaranteed to go to a team. So sometimes stick it out, work hard, or test or take a risk. But like you said, it's business. It's the way the
Yes.
world is the way the world works.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, obviously it's not a guarantee, but certainly the players see it as an opportunity. And quite honestly, it is a business. And these guys, it's a different world. I mean, I was, in some of the conversations I had recently, what's happening is that a lot of these big schools, like you look at anybody that's on the basketball team or the football team, almost everybody all of a sudden has like a really nice car. That didn't happen even just a few years ago, right? All of a sudden they've got money to throw around. They're living, a different life than the way that it used to be several years ago. So it's a business like anything else, but at the same time, it gives them some great opportunities to take advantage of the fame that they have and to be compensated for the risks that they're taking to their bodies. And look, the hope is that at least while they are on a college campus, they'll at least take advantage of the opportunity to get themselves a good education. Because for a lot of these guys, the biggest mistake everybody makes is thinking that the money that they're going to make on the field or on the court is going to last forever. And it really doesn't. And once they do retire, oftentimes in their mid to late 20s, or even let's say they make it into their 30s, there's still decades to go before retirement. And the real question is, what do they do after their career is over?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why they should call you. All
Well,
right.
right.
Yeah, they should
If they
call
plan
you,
properly, yeah,
hire
they could
you,
be
and
okay.
say, "Hey, Mr. Brodsky, what do I do?"
Yes.
You
And,
know.
and, and sadly, a lot of these guys don't always make the right decisions financially
Yeah.
because they think the money's going to keep rolling in forever, and it doesn't. So yes, you're right. It is a challenge, but hopefully, it seems like they are trying to educate the players. And I will say this about most schools, especially the ones that are in many cases compensating them very well through the NIL deals. Many of them now have life coaches, financial advisors that are actually coming to the school and talking with them about making sure they make the right decisions. And they're really trying to prevent the players from doing foolish things, getting themselves in trouble off the court, off the field, making foolish financial decisions, not getting sucked in by people that are kind of trying to use them for their money or their fame. So hopefully the players are taking those lessons to heart and learning from those resources. But a lot of the schools are definitely trying to educate the players. They didn't used to, because there was no money really at the time. I mean, they were just there to play and learn, and that was it. But now they're actually because it's a business, they're kind of being taught that business element and that financial element as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I love what the state of Florida did. Our governor signed a bill that financial literacy education is mandatory.
Yeah.
And they're even thinking about expanding it to either the middle school level or 10th grade, to add it
Yep.
on. So I think it's I think it's good that we've taken that step, but I think it's so important, that when kids graduate high school, they have at least the basics,
Right.
fundamentals of what they can do, when working or, investing and how to find scholarships and all those things. So I'm
Yep.
really glad that the state of Florida is taking the lead in that, as well. Mike, is there anywhere else we could find you? That
Sure.
any books you're writing that we should know about, or
None that I know of. No.
okay,
Basically, yeah. Go ahead and plug these two one more
there
time.
you go.
Incremental improvements, change your life one small step at a time. And of course, Fourth Down and Damn, a lineman story, the autobiography of Leon Searcy, is told by Mike Brodsky, which can both be found on Amazon. But I will give the link to sort of all of this information. And for anybody who wants to follow me on social media, you can go to my link tree, which is at linktr.ee/Mike Brodsky, which you can see on the screen there. right over there. Anyway, Linktree, linktr.ee/Mike Brodsky. And if you go there, you'll see actually some of the Super Bowl content is up there. Some of the interviews are on there. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can check out the links to the books at Amazon, and even with Incremental Improvements, if you want to download the book for free, Incremental Improvements, you can download it at incrementalimprovements.com. You can get the PDF version absolutely free. And Fourth Down and Damn, we've got the link to the paperback as well as the audiobook, which is a lot of fun. We've got Leon tells a bunch of bonus stories in the audible version. So if you want to check that out as well, it's a great listen.
Yes, definitely. If you wanna contact Mike, if you want to see anything what he's up to, we have the links downstairs down in the description page. Okay, so please feel free to click on any of his social media sites or any of his other business endeavors that you want to take a look at. Okay. Mr. Brodsky, thank you so much. Always a pleasure chatting with you.
Yes, thank you, Will. It's been a pleasure. Had a great time, and look forward to the next one.
Likewise, my friend. I greatly appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you.
Everybody, if you like what you heard, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to 305 Sports Now. Once again, I am Will. And for Mr. Brodsky, Mr. Mike Brodsky, have yourselves a wonderful night. Take care and God bless. See you soon.